Warning: this podcast contains adult material and is not suitable for anyone under the age of 18. You have been warned. Do you like movies?
Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself.
What do you think about horror movies? Blood, guts, and mayhem.
Groovy.
Then sit back, relax, and listen to the Dead and Rotting Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Dead and Rotting Podcast. I'm Tim Tanner. Some of the best things about horror movies is the cool death scenes. Finding new ways to kill people on screen has to be hard. So many cool deaths have been shot already, but there are those in the industry and that work on this tirelessly. Those folks, of course, are our effects artists. Without them, we would not have the cool death scenes, the guts, the gore, and what fun would that be? Today I will be chatting with Joe Castro, an awesome effects artist that has been in the game for a long time. Chances are you've probably seen his work. Check out his IMDb, which I've linked in the show notes, and believe me, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of your work, and
thank you.
And I appreciate you coming on the Dead and Rotting Podcast here.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. No, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here tonight. Not the day before Halloween.
So, will you please just kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what you do in the horror biz?
Oh, absolutely. My name is Joe Castro, but my friends back in high school used to call me Joey Castro. But when I directed my first feature, I thought, I don't know if I should have directed by Joey Castro. It just didn't ring right, you know. I wanted people to take me seriously, so I started using the name Joe Castro, and but I'm a special effects artist here in Hollywood, California, and I've been working in the business for almost 40 years now, and I'm also a film director and a writer and a producer. And I have directed and produced 19 feature films with my husband, Steven Escobar. And yeah, you know, that's what I do. I live, eat, and breathe movies and special effects and creatures. And I'm fairly well known for my blood work in movies. I have the Guinness Book of World Record for the highest body count in a slasher movie, which is for a movie that I directed and produced with my husband, Steven, back in 2012, titled The Summer of Massacre. So, and before we begin, I want to plug something real quick. Like, just want everybody to know, if you can't stick around for the whole interview, you can see all of my work at joecastrofx.com. And also you can go to www.terrortunes.tv, and my entire library of feature films is there. You can stream them. You can also purchase them on Blu-ray and all of our merchandise there.
Awesome, man. And I love Summer Massacre, and it's got a lot of gore.
Well, you'll be happy to know that my next big project is to go back and add another huge amount of deaths to the Summer Massacre and beat my Guinness Book of World Record. And we're going to add a whole bunch of new deaths, and we're going to go back and do an entirely new digital effects pass on the film. When I made that film back in 2012, I had just finished basically motion graphics CGI school, and I was still learning a lot of things. And I've been working in the business now with CGI for 11 years now, or 12 years now. So I've learned a lot over the past 11, 12 years, and I just want to be able to do kind of like, I'm going to George Lucas the thing, you know, go back and just kind of finesse the whole thing and get rid of all the bad motion tracking and the bad mats, and I just want to clean it up, and I want to add some stuff to it, you know.
Awesome, yeah. Man. Well, what got you interested and started in movies, specifically horror movies?
That's a great question. And I have the answer is my father. My father, when I was growing up, he was very tuned to what I was interested in, and he knew I liked dragons and dinosaurs, like most, young men growing up, children, guys growing up. We like dragons and dinosaurs and stuff like that.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, so one day he was babysitting me. My mother and my older brother were away for the weekend, and I was 7 years old. It was 1977, and it was a Saturday afternoon. And he said, "Son, sit here and watch this on TV. I know you're going to like it. I have to go out and do some work on the ranch. I grew up on a goat ranch in Helotes, Texas,
Oh
and
nice.
I sat there for 2.5 hours, and I watched Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. And it was the first time I had ever like sat by myself and watched a movie, unsupervised. I just sat there the whole time and I was kind of like a loner as a child too, kind of because we'll get into that later. But so I just sat there and watched the film, and when that film was over, my dad came in and I said, "Dad, how do they do that? How do they do all that stuff with the Godzilla and everything?" He said, "Son, that's special effects. That's how they do it. They do it with special effects." And then together we watched the end credits roll on the movie on TV. And he said, "Look, the special effects by." And I said, "Dad, that's what I want to do when I grow up." And that's where it all began, 1977.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. That is an awesome origin story for sure.
That film Godzilla versus the Smog Monster is supposed to be like the darkest Godzilla film because Godzilla almost dies in the movie. There's a scene where he falls into this pit and the Smog Monster like empties all this toxic sludge on him and he's like suffocating.
Oh
And like to
wow.
watching like an even if it's like a in a movie, but watching something suffocate is like it's so or like horrific even for like a 7-year-old to watch.
Right.
It was traumatizing, and most Godzilla films are, they were G rated,
Right.
and to watch Godzilla almost suffocate to death was pretty traumatizing for young people. So it's considered like the darkest of all the Godzilla films. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to check that one out.
you haven't seen that one, huh?
I
That's
have not.
it's amazing. It's such a good film, and it actually has its own Hidora, the monster that he fights. Hidora is the Japanese name of Smog Monster. So it's
Okay.
Godzilla versus Hidora, Godzilla versus Smog Monster. Hidora has his own cult fan following. That creature. In fact, I have it sitting on my kitchen sink. I have a like the Hedora monster sitting over there, so I get to
Nice.
see Hedora every time I go to the yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to get to your latest stuff, which is Terratoons 4, and I just wanted to ask what inspired you to write and make Terratoons. I know that there are four of them, but what is your influences for those movies?
That's a great question. So basically, a friend of mine who was a special effects artist invited me to work with him on a movie set in Palmdale, California. We were going up there to shoot the a new modern version of the Crucifixion of Christ for an Easter movie. And we were like, in his car, and we were driving up to set to put makeup on a guy to make it look like he was Christ, all like, cut up and everything. And we were just listening to tunes, and we were driving, and we both looked at this. We were both artists, so we're always visually stimulated. And there was this picture of this cat, this like evil cat on the back of someone's car as a bumper sticker. And we're like, that's cool, yeah, that's cool. And they're like, we know what's never been done. We were talking about Evil Tunes, and we're like, by the way, I actually did the special effects for the movie Evil Tunes, and I had no correlation between Evil Tunes and Terror Tunes, but we're like, we're trying to come up with like some new ideas of things that had never been done before, and we're like, what's never been done is like cartoon characters that come to life out of the TV for real, and they're evil and they kill you and they use cartoon weapons to kill you, giant cartoon weapons. But then when you die like for real, and it's really bloody. And we both like kind of went back and forth and came up with that concept. And I was like, when we were done with that, we're like, I just turned to him and I said, "Hey, I want to make it. I want to do it." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, if you produce it, I'll sculpt the creatures, and the only credit I want is creepy characters designed and created by, and my friend, that's what the credit he wanted, and that's how it began. And like within a month, there was already a script written. I wrote the story, and then I gave the story to my best friend from high school. His name is Rudy Bali, and Rudy wrote the screenplay based on the story. And my husband, Steven Escobar, also co-produced it and was the post-production supervisor. He taught himself how to use After Effects to put the whole movie together, and he came up with the story point, the missing element that tied it all together, that the evil cartoon characters came to life out of a DVD. And this was 2000, the year 2001 when we shot it. So DVDs were big then, and that was the medium that the devil used to create the evil cartoon characters and set them free into the world. And that's how the whole thing came about.
And did you originally have an idea to do sequels after y'all did the first one?
No, we just made the first one to make this, micro budget film. And, when we were doing it, most people don't know this, but the first movie was shot in 3 days
Oh,
in
wow.
one house, and it was shot for $2,300.
Wow.
And so, our whole goal was to make a movie very quickly on a micro budget. And, no one in the cast and crew was paid. But this is how I sold them on being a part of it. I said, if you come and spend 3 days with me, at the end of 3 days, you will have your first feature film credit as an actor.
Nice.
And they're like, okay, we'll do it. That's it. I'll feed you. You'll have a lead role in this film, and then this is how it'll happen. And literally, when we had it took us about a month and a half to put together the pre-production, the whole thing. And the first time I had like an audition or like a cast and crew script reading, everybody that showed up just got the part because no one else showed up. I was like, you're gonna have this part, you're gonna have this part. There was no auditioning. It's like I just gave everybody their part, and that's how we rolled, and that's how it happened. Yeah.
Nice. I remember watching that. I think that I had that I got it from Netflix when they used to send out the DVDs.
Yes.
I got that. I watched that first one on there, and but yeah, so what would be, and you kind of talked about it for budget constraints and stuff, but what was some of the hardest things getting Terratoons made?
Well, the first Terratoons was basically, like I said, we did it. We did it with the intention of, can we make this micro budget movie for literally no money at all? And we didn't really have any expectations behind it, so we just kind of like rolled with it. Like if it looked campy or kooky or cheesy, it was okay because it was supposed to be a cartoony, so it really didn't matter. It wasn't until I started having to produce stuff that was like, realism, and started competing with other micro budget films that were coming out that I had to step up my game and make it look better. We had to use a better camera. I brought in a DP, a gaffer to light things. Basically a man named Isaac Garza was flown in from San Antonio, or from I believe it was Corpus Christi, Texas, or I know it was South Texas. It was a friend of my husband, Steven Escobar. He was flown in to do the first Terratoons, and he literally shot the whole movie and lit the whole movie himself when we did the first one. There was one camera, there was one crew member. There was me, the director, and my husband was the boom operator. And even at one point, because we shot the first movie in 3 days, the first day we shot for 12 hour, regular 12 hour work day. And then the second day was 17 hours. And then the third day, which was a Sunday all the way to Monday morning, we shot for 25 hours until the last shot was done.
Wow. That's crazy.
There was basically only three of us on the crew. There was me, my husband, Steven, and his friend, our good friend, Isaac Garza.
That should be a Guinness record right there. Just doing all that, man.
Yeah.
So, as far as Terratoons 4, which is just coming out, is there anything that you want to tell us about I know you got a set coming out with that too, so want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, right now we have the Terror Tunes quadrilogy, which is all four Terror Tunes movies available, and you can get them once again from terrortunes.tv. And basically, it's all four films. And the thing about the four films is, I wanted to make sure that I never made the same movie twice. And so when I made the first one, the second one came about because a producer I was working with saw the numbers and how successful the first one was. So he decided to pay for the second movie to be made. We made the
Wow.
first movie for $2,300. I got $13,000 to make the second movie, which was
Nice.
an awful lot of money compared to the first one.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and then I had a lot of help too. It had a big crew and it had a big cast, and it's kind of like a classic shot on direct to video sequel, more of the same from the first one, a little more lighthearted, bigger cast. Brink Stevens was brought on board as a name talent in the film. And then the first one takes place at a weekend get together at a friend's house, and then the second one takes place at a kid's birthday party, and then the third one is basically it takes place inside the cartoon universe, and which is the tagline is anything is possible in the anything can happen in the cartoon universe. And it's kind of like all over the place. It's kind of like a fever dream kind of nightmare, and that stars Herschel Gordon Lewis. And then the fourth one, of course, it took us 10 years to make the fourth one.
Oh
We shot a majority of the fourth one in 2012, in 2013, and Brink Stevens was brought in for Terror Toons 2, 3, and 4, and in part 4 she makes her directorial debut. She wrote and starred in a portion of the film. The fourth film is an anthology. It has four stories, and it has the Dr. Carnage origin stories, where we kind of do like a modern horror take on how Dr. Carnage, excuse me, how Dr. Carnage came to be the evil cartoon scientist. And then we have Brink Stevens' story in it, which is a story titled "Personal Demons." Brink is plays a young Hollywood starlet, or a Hollywood starlet that has had some run-ins with, like, the tabloids, and a lot of drama over being a party girl, and she tries to mend her wicked ways. And it's a great story. I'm super proud to have it be a part of the Terror Toons family. And then, of course, there's the heads of Mr. Switch, and Mr. Switch is a new Terror Toons character that was invented by Dr. Carnage. And I can't even begin to explain what it's about. You just kind of have to see it. It's basically this guy that has no head. He's kind of like the headless horseman, and he has the capability to interchange his head with other things, like
Nice.
even objects. There's one at one point he has a giant candy corn as a head, and so you just got to see it. You just got. I can't even explain what it is. And then, of course, the fourth story in it is called The Clucking, and I don't even know how to explain. It's exactly what you think it is. It's Dr. Carnage doing some crazy stuff, and I guarantee the audience, if you loved Terror Toons 1, you will see things in Terror Toons 4 that you never thought you would see.
That sounds awesome. I've got to get
Yeah.
my hands on that. So, what do you plan on doing another Terror Tunes in the future? Maybe.
Well, I know that Stephen, it took us, we shot the first film in 3 days. It took us about a year to put it together. And then we shot the second film in 7 days, and it took us about a year to put that together as well. And then we shot the third movie. We literally shot Herschel Gordon Lewis's portion of the film in 2007. And then we shot the rest of it in 2012, 2013. And then it was released, I think, in 2016. So it took us almost 10 years to do the third film, which is a huge undertaking. And we made another film in the meantime. We made the Summer Massacre within all that. And we also produced a documentary during that time. But it was such a massive undertaking. And I believe, like, the fans of the first film have such an insatiable appetite for the strange and unusual. I'm like trying to feed them something new, strange, and unusual each time. So it's such a massive undertaking. And that's why it took, us 10 years to do the fourth one, because I wanted to make sure it was super extra special for everyone involved. And but to answer your question about part 5, I think that it's inevitable that there will be a part five. I think it's inevitable that there might be a part five at this point. But in the meantime, we're going to do the Summer Massacre, the remix of Summer Massacre, with a whole bunch of new kills, and then we're also going to Steve and I want to do a straight up serious horror film before we go back to the Terror Tunes universe.
What is up next for you as far as your project? I know you said your Summer of Massacre that you're going to be doing, but if there is there any other projects maybe that you're doing that you haven't told us about yet?
Well, there's a whole bunch of movies that are coming out that I'm super proud of. There's a movie titled Appetite for Sin, directed by Matthew Vanaha, and I get to play one of the lead characters in the film. I play a LAPD detective, and I'm tracking down vampires. I'm trying to
Oh, nice.
stop like a vampire ring from killing people. That started my acting career 4 years ago, and so that movie's coming out. And then, of course, there is a movie titled The Old Ones, and it's directed by Chad Farron, a movie I'm super proud of. It's an H.P. Lovecraft story, and it's making the festival rounds right now. Be on the lookout for that. It's full of creature effects. Another Chad Farron film that is going to be released, I believe, next week is titled Pig Killer, and it comes out worldwide in Germany and the United States. And it stars Jake Busey, and it's probably the most demented film I've ever worked on. Probably, I would have to say it's just it makes. I went to the a screening of it, and I sat with my husband in the theater with most of the cast and crew, and my husband looked over at me at one point and said, "This is even too much for me." And he's seen all my stuff, so it just outrageously demented. So if you don't have a weak stomach and you can handle it, watch Pig Killer. And then, of course, there is a movie that's out. Well, it's making the festival circuit right now. It's called Saint Drogo, and it's by Ryan Miller and Brandon Miller and Mike Joseph, and they made a movie. It's very hard to describe. All I can say is it's like kind of like a mind-bending, super serious, dark horror story, and some of the most twisted special effects, kind of a nightmarish supernatural effects I've ever made are in that film. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, yeah. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff coming out too, but ultimately the next couple of things on my plate. I don't know if I know there's a movie called Tip. It's a slasher film that's just coming out now. Also, that's making the festival circuit. And right now for the holidays, you can watch a movie titled "That's a Wrap," directed by Marcel Waltz, and that's coming out. That's already out, so I think you can watch it right now on Tubi, and it's a slasher film. Yeah, so.
You are a busy, busy man.
Thank you. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, what do you think would be the most difficult part working on horror movies?
Okay, that's a great question. One of the most difficult parts of working on a horror film for me as a special effects artist,
Mhm.
one of the most difficult parts is making or convincing actors sometimes for me to trust me to do what I do best. And I'm kind of known for like taking a lot of unique approaches to doing what I do because I try to reinvent special effects. I hate doing like the same thing twice. I want every time I cut someone's throat, I want it to be somewhat unique. Or every time I do something, I want it to be somewhat unique. And I'm always trying to push the envelope to make the special effects special. And in most cases, I'm trying and using new techniques that most actors have never seen or worked with before. So I'm trying to convince them to trust me to do that with them. And an actor's face is their moneymaker. So if I'm gluing on something on someone's face, it can be, it can be apprehensive at times. It can be apprehensive and it can be challenging. To trust me. I've been doing this for 40 years. Knock on wood, I have yet to scar someone's face or do something to hurt someone's face. I take super pride in my work, and I always use the utmost professional materials possible whenever I'm doing that. But yeah, that's the most challenging. Because gluing something on somebody's body or face, especially if they have to wear it for hours on end and it has to look great, it can be uncomfortable. And if I would have known going into my career that making someone very uncomfortable was going to be part of it, and having to consider their feelings and their comfort. I may not have chosen this route, but I mean, I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets. I'm super happy with it. Yeah, but that's challenging. It's always challenging.
And so, what would you say would be the best part about working on horror movies?
Well, for me as a special effects artist, the best part about working on the films is whenever I am able to accomplish something new and unique and original. It's obvious. It's like, wow, I've never seen that before. I've never experienced this before. And it's always a big win. Um, and like just doing a decapitation. Recently I did one in St. Drogo, and Tom Savini. I grew up with Tom Savini. I grew up learning from him. I used to be able to call Tom on the phone.
Oh,
This is
wow.
like 19 in like 1982. You could call 411, and if you had the area code to the city where we lived, you asked for the information operator, and if the person's phone number was listed in the phone book, they would give you their phone number if it wasn't private. And so Tom Savini had his phone number public, so I would just call him on the phone and ask him questions. And so, he was a great teacher, and he was very patient with me. I was 12 years old when I would call him, 12, 13, 14 years old.
Wow,
I
that's
called him all the way
awesome.
up till I was like 16. We would bug him, and he was very kind and patient with me. But recently I did a decapitation, and it's similar and was compared to the decapitation in the movie Maniac, which is classic.
Oh,
Just to be
man.
mentioned in the same sentence as Tom is always an honor. But what I did was I did kind of the same effect that he did, but I added a little touch to it to kind of take it to the next level. And yeah, I think it worked well. I think everybody was super impressed with it. But that's one of the greatest rewards, making something that no one's ever seen before or even considered thinking, and there you go. Like for instance, I'll end with this. Whenever I make my Halloween costume, Halloween tomorrow, I always try to do something that's never been done before. It's my thing. And for this year, I try to do some research online to see if I could find something similar to what I was, excuse me, thinking of building. And I could find nothing online. I Googled it, and normally you can Google like, open stomach or whatever, and you'll find some
Right.
pictures or of whatever. Or you type in, demon goblin, and there'll be a whole bunch of whatever. And but I Googled in my search, and nothing at all came up on the internet. So I was able to use some AI art to create a pre-production design of what I wanted to build. And I even went back to see if I could do a search of a similar image online, and there was nothing there. So I'm looking forward to showing everybody something completely unique that they've
Nice.
never seen before tomorrow. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking forward to that, man. Has there ever been a time where you've been really starstruck by someone that you've worked with? And what
Yeah.
what would that moment be like?
Okay. Okay. Sure. Yeah. It's so funny that you asked that question. It's been a long time since I've been starstruck. The two times I've been starstruck. The first time was Dick Miller. Yeah, you know who Dick Miller is? Dick Miller was in all of Joe Dante's movies. He was in Gremlins and the Twilight Zone, the
Okay,
movie,
yeah,
and he was in The Howling. I think he was even in Terminator, in the original Terminator. Anyways, Dick
yeah.
Miller, yeah, he was a character actor. He recently passed away. He passed away a few years ago. But I was working on this movie called Evil Tunes. It was directed by Fred Olen Ray, and Dick Miller was in it. David Carradine, Artie Johnson, and I didn't know that I was going to be meeting Dick Miller that day. I didn't know that I was going to be meeting him, and so Dick Miller comes over and sits in the makeup chair, and Fred says, "Put a wound on his head, like he got killed here or something like that." And I looked over, and there's Dick Miller, and I was starstruck. Of course, I think I was 20 years old at the time, so I was super nervous and super starstruck. And of course, Dick was very kind to me and talked me through the whole. It's like, don't be nervous, and you're gonna do great, and this kind of thing. And then the second time I was starstruck was Betsy Palmer, when I met Betsy Palmer for the first time. I didn't expect to meet her, and it was at like a Friday the 13th anniversary reunion convention they had here in LA. I forget what year it was. Maybe it was the 25-year or the 30-year anniversary of it, or something like that. And I went to the convention and I didn't expect to meet her, but I was super starstruck. Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis, met Jamie Lee Curtis, super starstruck over her as well. Super sweet woman, very
Nice.
inspiring. Yeah.
Nice. So, what's some advice that you can give to those who aspire to do your type of work in the film industry?
Oh, that's a good question. Excuse me. Let's see here. Well, if I was going to give advice to someone who was trying to enter the world of special effects, I would say start immediately because I've been doing this for 40 years and I just now feel like I've hit my stride. You know, there's always someone better than you. And if you want to actually make a living at it, it's extremely difficult. So you need to get working right now. There is no, what do you call it? It has to be number one. It has to be the first thing in your life. It can't be a side project or a hobby in order for it to work. If you want to do it professionally, but something you want to do as a hobby, there's plenty of YouTube videos, instructional YouTube videos that can show you how to do things. But if you want to learn how to be a special effects artist and work in the industry, you have to. Most of what I do is interacting with the director and interacting with the actors, and very very short amount of time is actually producing the pieces. So you need all the on-set experience you can get.
Now that we know a little bit about where you got your start from, what would you say would be your all-time favorite horror flick?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I can't give you an all-time favorite, but I can give you a few of the ones that inspired me the most. Let's see. I'm looking at one right now. I wish I could show you. This is like the Thai or Philippine Thai version, I think, of the movie Rabid, directed by David Cronenberg, one of my all-time favorite films. And of course, there's the original 1982 version of Poltergeist that is super inspiring to me. And I would have to say the movie Gates of Hell, City of the Living Dead. That was one of the first like rated R movies I saw in the theater. My cousin, his name was Eddie Perez. He passed away from a heart attack back in I believe it was 2012 and maybe in 2011. And he uh, uh, he was 33 when I was 11 or 12 years old, and he would take me as an adult to go see all these horror films because he knew I loved horror movies. Yeah, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. So back then, all movies were released unrated or non-rated, right? Rated
Right.
N or rated U or unrated. They're basically rated X, and because of gore and violence, and some because of nudity.
Right.
But he took me to see Gates of Hell, and that movie made a real big impact on my career. Yeah, and then of course, I never realized how much Herschel Gordon Lewis impacted my life until I finally got a chance to meet him and work with him on Blood Feast 2. So it was a real honor to create the special effects to the sequel to the very first slasher movie ever made. Joe Bob Briggs, he basically stated that Blood Feast, the original Blood Feast made in 1963 by Herschel Gordon Lewis, is the official slasher splatter movie ever made, the first one ever made. There have been other movies that were more like thrillers, like Psycho and these other films. But 1963, I think Psycho was made in 1962, I believe.
I think
And
so.
in 1963, Herschel Gordon Lewis exploited color cinema blood, and in the movie Blood Feast. Yeah.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you being on here. Is there anything else you want to add for our audience to know?
I just want to say, hey, let's make a movie. If you want to come over to my page on Instagram, it's Joe_Castro_director. Send me a message, follow me, and then come on over to Facebook at facebook.com/Joe.Castro. Send me a friend request, but more importantly, send me a direct message, say hello, introduce yourself. And if you're a filmmaker or aspiring artist out there, you shoot me a message and let's talk shop. And if you ever come out to LA, Tim, please let me know in advance. I'll take you out for a cup of coffee, maybe have a bite to eat, and we can talk more.
That sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate having Joe Castro on the show and on this Halloween Eve episode here. And that's it for the Dead and Rotting podcast for this week. Make sure to follow, like, and or subscribe to our podcast on either Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio. Don't forget to rate our podcast. And if you want to drop us a line, shoot us an email at deadandrottingpodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Instagram at Dead and Rotting Podcast. We even have a Facebook page under Dead and Rotting Podcast. If you are a filmmaker of the horror kind and want to do an interview or have us promote your movie, let us know. Hope you have a great day. And before we go, do you know what the frog did when his car broke down? He got towed.